The morning sun cast long shadows across the gleaming towers of New Geneva as Dr. Mia Tran stepped onto the observation deck of the Liwanag Interplanetary Center. The 22nd century had been kind to humanity. Wars were distant memories, diseases conquered, and the stars, finally within reach. Earth's technology, well advanced by historical standards, remained humble compared to the vast galactic empires that sprawled across the cosmos. Humanity had learned this truth gradually through careful diplomatic contact with various alien civilizations over the past 50 years. Dr. Tran adjusted her neural interface headset and reviewed the morning's intelligence briefings. As Earth's leading expert in cosmic diplomacy, she had spent the last decade studying the complex web of alliances and conflicts that defined interstellar politics. The two major powers, the Axis Collective and the Coalition of Free Worlds, had been locked in a brutal war for nearly a century, their conflict spanning hundreds of star systems. Earth, positioned in a relatively quiet spiral arm of the galaxy, had successfully maintained its neutrality through careful negotiation and the strategic sharing of cultural artifacts that both sides found fascinating. The Liwanag Center hummed with activity as research teams from across Earth collaborated on various projects. Named after the ancient Filipino word for light, the station served as humanity's window into the cosmic community. Through its massive communication arrays, Earth had learned of technologies that seemed like magic matter, transmutation, consciousness, transfer, and weapons capable of cracking moons. Humanity's own achievements, while impressive by terrestrial standards, paled in comparison. "Dr. Tran, we're receiving something unusual," called out Lieutenant Maya Okafor from the communications center. Her voice carried an edge of concern that immediately caught Mia's attention. Mia hurried across the polished floor, her footsteps echoing in the vast chamber, lined with holographic star maps. The communications center occupied the heart of the Liwanag station, its walls covered with monitoring equipment that tracked signals from across the local galactic neighborhood. "What kind of signal?" Mia asked, leaning over Maya's shoulder to examine the displays. "It's coming from the Orion corridor near the disputed zone between Axis and Coalition territory. The encryption patterns match Axis protocols, but the content—" Maya paused, her brow furrowed. "It's a distress call, but it seems to be directed at us specifically." The main display flickered to life, showing a three-dimensional map of local space. A pulsing red dot marked the signal's origin, a research outpost on the edge of known space. The message itself appeared in the center of the hologram, translated into Earth's standard diplomatic language. "Emergency assistance required. Axis Research Station Kepler 442 under siege by Coalition forces. Civilian personnel trapped. Request immediate humanitarian intervention from Earth Diplomatic Corps. Coordinates attached. Time sensitive." Mia stared at the message, her mind racing. In all their years of cosmic diplomacy, Earth had never been directly asked to intervene in the galactic war. Their role had always been that of neutral observers, cultural ambassadors, and occasionally mediators when both sides agreed to talks. "Are you certain this is authentic?" Mia asked. Maya nodded grimly. "The encryption keys match our records, and the transmission path traces back to the Kepler system. But there's something strange about it. The signal's routing suggests it was originally intended for someone else, then redirected to us." Before Mia could respond, her personal communicator chimed with an urgent summons to the Earth Council's emergency session. Within an hour, she found herself in the underground chambers beneath Geneva, facing the representatives of Earth's unified government. Chancellor Rodriguez, a weathered man who had guided Earth through 2 decades of interstellar diplomacy, sat at the head of the curved table. Around him, the faces of Earth's leaders reflected the gravity of the situation. The holographic message played repeatedly in the center of the room, its red warning indicators casting an ominous glow. "Dr. Tran," the Chancellor began, "your assessment of this situation." Mia stood organizing her thoughts carefully. "The request appears genuine, but the circumstances are highly unusual. In 93 years of galactic war, neither side has ever asked Earth for direct intervention. Our technology, while adequate for defensive purposes, is primitive compared to their capabilities. There must be a specific reason why this message was sent to us. Defense Minister Zhang leaned forward. Could this be a trap, a way to draw us into the conflict? It's possible, Mia admitted. But if the Axis truly has civilians trapped, the humanitarian implications are significant. Our neutrality has been built on the principle that we value all sentient life equally. The debate that followed revealed deep divisions within Earth's leadership. Some argued for caution, pointing out that any intervention could shatter the carefully maintained neutrality that had protected Earth for decades. Others emphasized humanity's moral obligation to help those in need, regardless of the political consequences. Dr. Elena Morales, Earth's foremost xenosociologist, spoke quietly, but forcefully. We've spent 50 years learning about galactic civilizations, studying their cultures, their histories, their conflicts. If we turn away now when asked for help, what does that say about who we are as a species? After 6 hours of debate, the vote was close: 7 in favor of intervention, 5 against. The decision was made to send the EAS Peacekeeper, Earth's most advanced diplomatic vessel, on a humanitarian mission to the Kepler system. 3 days later, Mia found herself aboard the Peacekeeper as it prepared for departure from Earth orbit. The ship represented the pinnacle of human engineering, a sleek vessel equipped with the best defensive systems. Earth could produce medical facilities and supplies for refugee assistance. Compared to the massive warships of the galactic powers, it was little more than a scout vessel, but it was fast and well shielded. The crew of 40 included some of Earth's best. Major Jonah Park commanded the security detail. Engineer Amina Yusuf oversaw the ship's systems, and Dr. Elena Morales led the cultural assessment team. As they activated the jump drives that would carry them across light years in a matter of days, Mia felt both pride in humanity's achievements and humility at the vast distances they were crossing. The journey to Kepler 442 took 5 days through hyperspace, during which the crew prepared for every possible scenario. They studied coalition and Axis military tactics, reviewed first aid procedures for various alien physiologies, and practiced emergency evacuation protocols. The ship's AI continuously monitored galactic communication networks, but no new information about the situation emerged. When the Peacekeeper dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, the crew was greeted by a scene of devastation. The research station orbited a barren world, its modular structure partially destroyed and leaking atmosphere into space. But more ominously, 3 coalition warships hung motionless nearby their hulls, bristling with weapons that could reduce the Peacekeeper to atoms. "Incoming transmission," reported Communications Officer Patel, her voice tight with tension. The main screen flickered to reveal the bridge of the coalition flagship. Admiral Ralkin, a tall figure with the distinctive cranial ridges of the Corvani species, stared out at them with eyes like black stars. When he spoke, the translation software rendered his words in cold, precise English. "Earth vessel Peacekeeper, you are in violation of coalition space during a military operation. State your purpose immediately." Mia stepped forward, activating the diplomatic protocol she had studied for years. "Admiral Ralkin, I am Dr. Mia Tran of the Earth Diplomatic Corps. We received a distress call regarding civilian casualties at the research station. We're here on a humanitarian mission, offering medical assistance and evacuation if needed." Ralkin's expression darkened. The research station was conducting weapons development for the Axis war effort. By responding to their request, Earth has declared itself a supporter of war criminals. Your intervention is noted and will be reported to Coalition Command. The transmission cut abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Mia felt ice forming in her stomach as she realized the implications. Somehow Earth had been manipulated into a position that could be interpreted as taking sides in the galactic war. "Major Park," she said quietly, "prepare for defensive maneuvers." But even as the words left her mouth, the coalition ships were already moving. Energy weapons lanced out, not enough to destroy the Peacekeeper immediately, but sufficient to disable its engines and weapon systems. Within minutes, Earth's most advanced ship was helpless, drifting toward the planet Sarah below. The next several hours passed in a blur of emergency procedures and desperate communications. The coalition forces boarded the Peacekeeper, taking the crew prisoner, but treating them with the cold professionalism of military personnel, rather than the brutality Mia had feared. They were transported to a detention facility on Sarah's surface, a sterile complex that housed prisoners of war from across the galaxy. In her cell, Mia had time to think about how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered. The distress call had indeed been real, but it was clear now that it had been redirected to Earth by forces unknown. Whether by Axis intelligence trying to draw Earth into the war, or by coalition agents creating a pretext for action against Earth, the result was the same: humanity's neutrality was now in ruins. Dr. Morales in the adjacent cell spoke through the thin walls. "I've been thinking about the message routing. Maya was right, it was redirected, but the redirection happened at multiple nodes. This wasn't the work of one side or the other. Someone wanted both sides to think Earth was taking sides." The revelation brought little comfort. Within days, coalition demands reached Earth: surrender of all space-based installations, payment of massive reparations for supporting terrorism, and acceptance of coalition oversight over Earth space activities. The alternative, Admiral Ralkin made clear in his transmissions, was the complete destruction of Earth's space infrastructure. Back on Earth, the government found itself paralyzed by impossible choices. Surrender meant the end of humanity's brief age of space exploration and contact with galactic civilization. Resistance meant facing military forces that could destroy entire worlds. The debates in the Earth Council grew heated, with some members calling for immediate surrender, while others demanded preparation for war, despite the hopeless odds. Chancellor Rodriguez aged visibly as the crisis deepened. Earth's military, designed for defense and peacekeeping, began frantic preparations for a siege they could not possibly win. The space elevators were fortified orbital platforms, armed with every weapon available, and civilian populations began evacuation to underground shelters. The end came faster than anyone expected. On a Tuesday morning, 3 weeks after the Peacekeeper's capture, coalition fleet elements appeared throughout Earth's solar system. They had come not to occupy or negotiate, but to demonstrate. Admiral Ralkin's face appeared on every communication channel across Earth, his message simple and final. The planet Earth has been found guilty of supporting terrorism and war crimes against the coalition of free worlds. As an example to other neutral worlds, Earth's space-based infrastructure will be destroyed. This is the consequence of choosing sides in galactic conflicts. The first target was the Liwanag Interplanetary Center. Mia watched from her cell on Sarah as the news feeds showed the magnificent station, humanity's greatest achievement, and its window to the stars disintegrating under the impact of coalition weapons. The structure that had taken 15 years to build was reduced to expanding clouds of debris in seconds. But the coalition wasn't finished. As Earth's population watched in horror, Admiral Ralkin revealed the true scope of their revenge. A massive weapon, something that existed at the edge of even coalition technology, was being prepared. Not to destroy Earth's infrastructure, but to destroy Earth itself. "You have 48 hours to evacuate any personnel you consider essential," Ralkin announced. "After that time, this world will be rendered uninhabitable as a permanent reminder of the cost of interference." The next 2 days were chaos beyond description. Earth's governments attempted to organize evacuations, but with the Liwanag Center destroyed and most space infrastructure in ruins, their options were severely limited. Ancient emergency protocols designed for asteroid impacts or solar flares were activated, sending millions of people into deep underground shelters. In the detention facility on Sarah, Mia and her crew watched the approaching catastrophe with growing desperation. Engineer Yusuf had managed to jury-rig a communication system using components from their cell's environmental controls, allowing them to monitor Earth's emergency broadcasts. "The underground shelters won't be enough," Yusuf said grimly. "Whatever weapon they're planning to use, it's designed to affect the entire planet. The geological disruption alone will make the surface uninhabitable for decades. Major Park paced their shared cell like a caged animal. There has to be something we can do. Some way to get word to Earth to warn them properly. Dr. Morales had been silent for hours, but now she looked up with red-rimmed eyes. I've been monitoring the Coalition communications. The weapon, it's not just going to make Earth uninhabitable. It's going to crack the planet's crust. Earth is going to die. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. 48 billion people, the entire population of humanity, were about to be exterminated as a demonstration of galactic politics. But even in the depths of despair, human ingenuity sparked. Yusuf had discovered that their detention facility was connected to Serra's main computer network, a security oversight that the Coalition had apparently deemed irrelevant, given their prisoners' primitive technology. Working through the night, she managed to hack into the planet's communication systems. "I can't reach Earth directly," she whispered, "but I can access the Serra system's emergency broadcast network. If there are any human ships or installations listening." The message she sent was brief but desperate. "Earth evacuation imminent. Seek shelter in deep core facilities. Remember Earth." 26 hours later, the weapon fired. Mia and her fellow prisoners felt the effects even across interstellar distances. The Coalition had prepared observation equipment to record the destruction, partly for tactical assessment and partly for propaganda purposes. The images that reached Serra showed Earth's final moments in terrible clarity. The weapon struck Earth's moon first, destabilizing its orbit and sending massive gravitational shockwaves through the Earth-Luna system. Then came the primary beam of focused blast of exotic energy that penetrated Earth's crust and ignited fusion reactions in the planet's core. For several hours, Earth burned from within its surface, cracking and releasing molten rock into space. Mia watched her homeworld die and felt something fundamental break inside her. The blue marble that had given birth to humanity, that had nurtured art and music and love and hope for millions of years, was coming apart like a broken toy. But even in that moment of ultimate loss, signs of hope flickered. The emergency shelters deep in Earth's crust had been designed to survive almost anything, and some of them had. Scattered across the dying planet, groups of survivors emerged from the deepest bunkers as the immediate destruction passed, using hastily modified mining equipment and maintenance tunnels to reach the few remaining space-capable vessels. The largest group of survivors had gathered around the Evac-1, an experimental evacuation ship that had been under construction in the Colorado Deep facility. Originally designed for asteroid mining operations, the ship had been hastily modified for evacuation duty when the crisis began. It was far from perfect. Its life support systems were overtaxed, its engines barely functional, and its navigation computers damaged by the electromagnetic pulses from Earth's destruction. Leading this group was Dr. Sarah Kim, a former colleague of Mia's, who had been at the Colorado facility when the evacuation orders came. Using skills no academic had ever expected to need, she organized the survivors into work crews, coordinating repairs to the Evac-1, while managing rationing and medical care for nearly 300 people. The repair work proceeded against a ticking clock. Earth's disrupted core was continuing to tear the planet apart, creating an increasingly dangerous environment of radiation debris and gravitational anomalies. The Evac-1 had perhaps days before the facility became completely uninhabitable. Dr. Kim's background in xenosociology proved unexpectedly valuable as she dealt with the psychological trauma of the survivors. Many were in shock, unable to process the magnitude of what had happened. Others were consumed with rage, demanding immediate revenge against the Coalition. A few had retreated into complete denial, insisting that rescue was coming and that Earth could somehow be saved. "We can't save Earth," Dr. Kim told them during one of the daily assemblies. "But we can save what Earth means. We can save the idea of Earth, the memory of what we were, and the hope of what we might become again." Working 18-hour days, the engineering team slowly brought the Evac-1 to minimum operational status. The ship's quantum drives were functional, though unreliable. The life support systems could maintain the current population for several months, assuming they could find supplies. Most importantly, the ship's data storage systems contained a complete copy of the Liwanag Center's cultural archives, music, literature, art, history, and science from across human civilization. The departure was a scene of controlled chaos. 300 survivors, representing perhaps the last of human civilization, crowded into a ship designed for 70. The launch sequence was a nightmare of jury-rigged systems, and crossed fingers with the ship's computer warning of dozens of potentially catastrophic malfunctions. But the EVAC-1 lifted off, struggling against Earth's disrupted gravity and the debris field that had once been the moon. As it climbed toward space, the survivors got their last view of their home world, a cracked sphere of molten rock and debris, still glowing with the heat of its own destruction. Dr. Kim stood on the bridge, tears streaming down her face as she activated the ship's recording systems. She began to speak, knowing that these words might be the last testimony of human civilization. "My name is Dr. Sarah Kim. Today Earth died. The world that gave birth to Mozart and Shakespeare, to the pyramids, and the space elevators to love and art, and the dream of reaching the stars, is gone. 48 billion people are dead, killed not for any crime they committed, but as an example to others. But we survive. 300 of us carrying the memory of Earth and the hope of humanity's future. We don't know where we're going or what we'll find when we get there. We don't know if there are other survivors, other ships, other hope. But we carry with us everything that ever mattered about being human. To whoever finds this recording, whether human or alien, whether in years or centuries or millennia, remember Earth. Remember that there was once a blue world where a species learned to dream of stars, and when those dreams were crushed, they dreamed again. Remember that humanity never surrendered its hope, even when hope seemed impossible." The EVAC-1 limped away from the ruins of Earth, its quantum drive stuttering but holding. Behind them, the debris that had once been humanity's home continued to spread across the solar system, a monument to the consequences of galactic politics and the fragility of civilization. In the ship's converted cargo holds Dr. Elena Morales, who had somehow survived in one of Earth's deepest shelters, began the work of cataloging and preserving human culture. Working with the ship's limited computer systems, she created a comprehensive archive that could serve as the foundation for rebuilding human civilization somewhere in the vast galaxy. Meanwhile, Saramia and her fellow prisoners had watched Earth's destruction with a mixture of grief and helpless rage. But the same ingenuity that had allowed them to hack Sarah's communication systems now turned toward escape. Engineer Yusuf had discovered that the coalition, in their arrogance, had seriously underestimated human determination and creativity. The detention facility's security systems were designed to hold prisoners with advanced technology, but limited motivation. Humans, primitive by galactic standards, but desperate beyond measure, represented a combination the designers had never considered. Over several weeks, Yusuf and her team slowly compromised the facility's systems, preparing for an escape attempt that would either free them or get them killed. The breakout came during a shift change when security was momentarily reduced. Using improvised weapons and detailed knowledge of the facility's layout, the humans fought their way to the starport, where their captured ship, the Peacekeeper, was being held for study. The Coalition guards, caught completely off guard by the desperate fury of beings they had dismissed as primitive, were overwhelmed before they could organize an effective response. The Peacekeeper's systems had been partially dismantled for analysis, but Yusuf's skills and desperate motivation allowed her to restore basic functionality. As Coalition reinforcements rushed toward the starport, the ship lifted off in a barely controlled flight that would have been impossible under normal circumstances. "Where do we go?" Major Park asked, as they cleared Sarah's atmosphere with Coalition fighters in pursuit. Mia had been thinking about this question since Earth's destruction. "We follow the archives." Dr. Kim mentioned in her transmission that they were using the Liwanag Center's star charts. "If we can intercept their signal trail, The pursuit through interstellar space that followed was a desperate game of hide-and-seek among the stars. The Peacekeeper, damaged and running on backup systems, was no match for Coalition warships in direct confrontation. But the galaxy was vast, and Yusuf's modifications to the ship's signature made it difficult to track. 3 months later, the two groups of survivors found each other in the Kepler 442 system, ironically near the research station where the crisis had begun. The reunion was emotional beyond description. People who had thought themselves the last humans alive discovering that others had survived. That hope was not completely lost. The combined survivor population numbered just over 350 people. They had 2 ships' limited supplies, and the entire cultural heritage of human civilization stored in their computer systems. They were refugees in a galaxy that had demonstrated its willingness to destroy entire worlds for political purposes. But they were alive and they were human, and they refused to surrender. The decision of where to go sparked intense debate among the survivors. Some wanted to find a hidden world where they could rebuild in secret. Others advocated for approaching the Axis forces, hoping to find protection among the Coalition's enemies. A few suggested trying to reach the galactic core, where ancient civilizations might offer sanctuary. Dr. Kim, who had emerged as the leader of the main survivor group, advocated for a different approach. "We shouldn't hide," she argued. "We should make ourselves known, not to governments or military forces, but to people, to the civilizations that still believe in justice and mercy. If we hide, we become nothing more than another casualty of war. If we stand up and tell our story, we become something more. We become a reminder of what this war costs." The decision, when it came, was unanimous. The survivors would not hide. They would not seek revenge. They would not repeat the cycle of violence that had destroyed their world. Instead, they would become witnesses carrying the memory of Earth to anyone who would listen. Dr. Morales established what she called the Remember Earth Project, creating a comprehensive record of human civilization that could be shared with other species. The archive included not just historical data, but music, art, literature, philosophy, and personal stories from the survivors themselves. It was designed to show other civilizations what had been lost when Earth died, and what might be lost if the Galactic War continued. The first transmission of the Remember Earth archive was broadcast from the Kepler system to communication networks across the galaxy. It told the story of a species that had reached for the stars, only to have those stars fall on them. It showed what Earth had been: a world of incredible diversity, creativity, and hope. And it demonstrated what humanity remained unbowed by tragedy, committed to the values that had once made Earth a beacon in the darkness. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Within days, messages began arriving from across the galaxy, expressions of sympathy, offers of assistance, and most importantly, pledges from dozens of civilizations to remember Earth and honor its legacy. Some of these responses came from unexpected sources. A group of Coalition scientists, horrified by their government's actions, leaked classified information about the weapon used against Earth, providing evidence that could be used in future war crimes tribunals. Axis intelligence operatives revealed details about how the original distress call had been manipulated, showing that Earth had been the victim of a deliberate conspiracy to justify the planet's destruction. But perhaps the most significant response came from the Vigil, an ancient organization dedicated to preserving knowledge and protecting vulnerable civilizations. Representatives of the Vigil contacted the Earth survivors, directly offering them sanctuary in the Sanctuary World's hidden planets, where refugees from galactic conflicts could rebuild their lives. The offer sparked another debate among the survivors. Accepting would mean safety and the chance to rebuild human civilization in peace. But it would also mean disappearing from galactic consciousness, allowing Earth's destruction to become just another footnote in the history of an endless war. In the end, the survivors chose to split their efforts. Half would accept the Vigil's offer, establishing a hidden colony where human civilization could slowly rebuild. The other half would continue as wanderers carrying the Remember Earth archive to every corner of the galaxy, ensuring that the story of humanity's brief interstellar age and tragic end would never be forgotten. Mia chose to stay with the wanderers. Standing on the bridge of the reconstructed Peacekeeper, as it prepared for another jump into the unknown, she looked out at the stars and thought about the blue world that had once been home to everything she loved. "Captain," Yusuf called from the engineering station, "quantum drives are ready. Where to this time?" Mia consulted the star charts that had been copied from the Liwanag Center's archives. Each destination was another chance to share humanity's story, another opportunity to ensure that Earth's memory would endure. "Set course for the Centauri Collective," she said. "They've agreed to add our archives to their cultural repository. Dr. Morales has prepared a special exhibition about Earth's musical traditions." As the ship prepared to jump, Dr. Morales joined Mia on the bridge. The xenosociologist had become the keeper of human memory, dedicating her life to ensuring that Earth's legacy would inspire future generations across the galaxy. "Sometimes I wonder if we're just tilting at windmills," Dr. Morales said quietly. "One small ship carrying the memory of a dead world through a galaxy at war." Mia smiled, remembering something her grandmother had told her long ago, back when Earth was still alive, and the stars seemed like distant dreams rather than destinations. "Maybe we are, but windmills or giants we keep fighting. That's what makes us human." The Peacekeeper jumped, carrying its precious cargo of memory and hope toward another world, another chance to ensure that somewhere in the vast galaxy, someone would remember Earth. Behind them, the ruins of the Kepler research station drifted in the darkness, a reminder of how the crisis had begun. Ahead lay the unknown new worlds, new peoples, new opportunities to share the story of a blue planet that had once dared to dream of stars. The survivors didn't know what they would find, or whether they would succeed in their mission to preserve humanity's legacy. But they carried with them something that no weapon could destroy, no government could regulate, and no war could defeat: the indomitable human spirit that had once transformed a single world into the cradle of dreams, and now refused to let those dreams die in the darkness between the stars. In the ship's data cores, the Remember Earth archive pulsed with stored music, literature, and memories from a world that no longer existed. Videos of children playing in parks that were now cosmic dust. Recordings of orchestras performing in concert halls that had been vaporized. Love letters between people who had died when their planet cracked apart. All of it preserved, all of it protected, all of it carried forward by survivors who had lost everything except their determination to ensure that Earth's story would continue to be told. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, filled with conflicts that could destroy worlds and civilizations that viewed entire species as expendable. But somewhere in that darkness, a small ship carried a light that no force in the universe could extinguish: the memory of what had been and the hope of what might yet be. Earth was gone, but humanity endured. Not as conquerors or refugees, but as witnesses and teachers carrying the story of their lost world to anyone willing to listen. And in that story, in that refusal to let tragedy have the final word, something of Earth's true spirit lived on among the stars.